very much, Mr. Mahon, for your submission here this morning. Just at the outset, I thank you, first of all, for what is a very detailed submission covering a broad range of areas. Can I raise a couple of brief questions with you? You stated at the outset in relation to the fact that people that have become long-term unemployed, left education early, as a result become isolated and insecure and become withdrawn from society. Have you seen a difference in relation to that as a result of COVID-19? So, dealing with people prior to COVID-19 and now, new clients coming in to the CE scheme, and the impact that that has had the last 2 years on them. And if you could maybe comment on that. I think it is important that, and you've highlighted in your evidence here this morning, that, look, no two individuals that come into a CE programme are the same. Background is different, their education is different, their own life experience is different, and you need to engage with them if we're going to bring them actively back into the workforce, which ultimately is the objective in relation to this. And do you feel that under the engagement that you're having with the department, that you're given the level of scope to have that flexibility and cater for those individual needs to ensure ultimately you get someone back actively participating in the workforce? And related to that then, how big an issue is the issue of literacy and numeracy? We know from survey after survey that we're looking at 1/5 of our adult population cannot read and comprehend the instruction on the back of a paracetamol box. And that's a failing on our education system. And, there are many opportunities for people to re-engage with the education system. They haven't done that. They end up being long-term unemployed. And CE is probably the last safety net available for them. So, how big an issue is it? And do you feel that you're getting the support and flexibility to be able to engage with those people, to encourage them through various mechanisms back into the education system again? And look, the reality is we all know that in many instances, those people have had a very poor experience of their engagement with the education system up to now. It's not a case of just providing them with a literacy or numeracy course. It's about, encouraging them slowly through various avenues back into the system again. And my question is the flexibility there, is the support there to allow you to do that? So maybe if you or the other witnesses could maybe address some of those questions.
Well, firstly, just to answer your question about COVID and its impact on participants. Undoubtedly, it has had a huge impact. But we would find, in general, the participants that we will get will be sent our direction will ebb and flow depending on the economic status of the country at any given time. So, if you have a period of high employment, the people that we would be reaching towards are the furthest removed from the labour market. So they will tend to come with more social issues, notwithstanding COVID. But COVID has exacerbated those. So they're coming in now with maybe not having met or spoken to really anyone for maybe a year, have had little or no interaction. So the benefit from CE from a social inclusion perspective is absolutely, it's off the charts in significance for these individuals. But we've also found with COVID, social issues that are currently coming up, like housing. I would have 2 or 3 participants in my scheme that would be on the verge of homelessness because they're putting under so much pressure. These people, in general, are living hand to mouth by the way the payment that they're getting the scheme. They get it of a Friday, it's gone. They don't have any savings. So when issues such as social issues such as housing have huge impacts, and obviously COVID has exacerbated the housing situation. But from a I suppose, a mentality point of view, there's huge depression, there's huge just lack of contact with people. Like, even interacting, going into intro services was an interaction. Going to the post office to get their payment was an interaction. All of these interactions were gone. So, like going to the shop, while they might have gone down to the shop 5-6 days of the week, they were going once. Every interaction that they undertook was diminished significantly. So CE is of huge importance to them. But then when we as supervisors are dealing with these participants, it's taking longer to get them and reintegrate them into our workforce, getting them up to speed. They're just, it is problematic, and it has posed problems for an awful lot of supervisors dealing with people such as that, because you almost need to be a social worker and a counsellor. We wear so many different hats that you can't be an expert in everything, and we've had many a phone call to Pieta House, to different supports to help and assist our participants. And this is where I suppose the holistic nature of the role that we undertake that was alluded to. You are helping them fill out their medical card applications, helping them with HAP, helping them with their different needs. Because if a person isn't solid in things like housing, worrying about work and training is the least of their worries. So until you can get them in a solid footing, in a secure footing, it's only then that you can start integrating them wholly, and that the huge benefit of CE is going forward. And when you're talking about the support and flexibility with the DSP, we only really deal with the DSP from a practical management point of view. We don't really have any interactions with them from a policy development or dealing with them on a personal one-to-one basis. The last 2 CDOs that I've had in my scheme, I've never met in person. We've only emailed each other. I've only spoken maybe twice ever to the CDO and the scheme that we currently have. Now, we have a great relationship via email, but there isn't that bond. So there isn't really flexibility or support for the needs that are currently out there for schemes. In regard to your question with literacy and numeracy, that can be geographical as much as anything else. If you're a very rural scheme, you will deal with a certain cohort. Where I'm based in Oranmore, we cover into Oireachtas. So I have very much a rural aspect to my scheme, where people will be coming on the scheme because they're on farm assists and stuff like that. But then I'm in Oireachtas as well, which is it is the most culturally diverse community in Ireland. So I have the very urban and rural kind of perspective. So in the urban, I would be getting predominantly people who are non-nationals. They have huge literacy, huge prior learning, master's degrees. Their issues with employment often is lack of networks, lack of confidence in English. We get their degrees and certification from their home country. We'd go through the NARIC process of getting it, into the Irish system. For them, and often that is all we have to do with them from a training perspective. They have the training. We might get them a comparable Irish qualification so that it looks good on their CV, but for them it's English language is their primary issue. It's not literacy, it is just being able to speak and have just being comfortable speaking with it. So being immersed in a kind of a predominantly Irish kind of environment, speaking with other Irish people, their English comes on leaps and bounds. They have it generally, it's just a confidence thing. Our older cohort of traditional C workers that people might have the perspective of, cutting pitches into GA ground and stuff like that, numeracy and literacy can be an issue. But what we've always found is that we start them off training at a very approachable level. Do courses like the Safe Pass course, which has very much taken in literacy into it. They have it, a lot of them. They just need to get the comfortability with their peers going into a group and go doing a training course, and then you gradually build and build. And that's where I suppose the time comes in. And we would love to have the flexibility and support with the DSP dealing with individuals. And that's why I would have mentioned in the submission about you just get through to a person, you have them on a pathway, and then their time on CE ceases, and they're 2/3 of the way there. and some of them that have engaged, you know, like you might need 9 modules to get a QQI major award. You know, if they're on 5 or 6, they're so far there, you know, gone. It's such a disappointment for us and them that we can't get them to the end line. So that's why we would love a bit of flexibility in assisting us with very identifiable individuals that we can produce, you know, where they've done and what they have done to get them over the line. So I hope